I am Simon. I am the managing director of a product acceleration company called Tain and Able. And what we do is we help entities, both startups as well as people that are already established, realize their IP value. Okay, we help them realize the value that they bring to their customers, and help them to within the productization process. I have been involved in the startup scene for, I would say, the past 2 to 3 years. I would say before that, Malta really didn't have a startup scene at all, or if it did, it's behind closed doors. Okay, but people are starting to emerge. People are starting to talk and sit around the table and actually have a discussion. Where before it used to be, a couple of techies in a room. Behind closed doors and developing something, and most of the case actually doing nothing with it. Okay.
Okay. That sounds like something is really happening in Malta at the moment. Yeah.
Well, yes, I would say the past 12 months in particular, there have been some very interesting success stories, which obviously that fuels, the drive and the passion for people, to start taking risks and starting to invest in their ideas. And secondly, Malta is a very small island, yeah. So there are 450,000 people living over here. But over the past few years, there has been a huge influx of foreign entities coming into Malta. If you look at what is happening within the financial sector, as well as gaming, Malta has the strongest gaming industry within Europe. And that brings it obviously a lot of talent, a lot of people from very different backgrounds. Okay. And that has obviously created an interesting fusion of talents and of ambition. Okay, so that has created what we have today, a still small but growing very strongly when it comes to startups or possibly tech. Okay,
great. So, what are those success stories you mentioned? Can you give an example? What happened in the last 12 months? Something that was really exciting?
Well, I mean, Malta, if you look at the gaming industry, okay, though it obviously tech plays an important role within there, okay. A lot of gaming companies have been incubated in Malta, okay.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So they would actually go through the startup process in Malta, and then obviously use typically in Northern Europe as a market, but Malta would be the hub, yeah. But even if you look at a couple of years ago and sort of Malta's history and how it was used previously as a test bed from a marketing perspective as well. If you look at Vodafone, Vodafone's first network outside of the UK was in fact in Malta, and the reason for that was that it is a very small controlled environment where you can test whether it will perform outside of its UK home territory. Okay, and which did, and it was very successful. And after that, a lot of other entities started using Malta as a test hub from a market perspective. Then obviously the gaming industry came along. It created a huge financial structure.
Oh, very cool, very cool. So what makes you at the moment thrive in Malta personally? What is encouraging to you?
Well, I think when you look at the success stories that we have had, I think the most important question is to ask yourself why. What really does Malta have to offer, which potentially might be a bit different. And if you look at startup scenes or tech startup scenes across the world, there are a couple of common factors. Okay, and I think Malta does tick a lot of these boxes. And if you had to go through them, I'd say the first one being quality of life. Malta used to be our biggest export was tourism. So we do tick that box very well when it comes to weather, when it comes to the pace that things go. When it comes to we don't have to spend 3 hours in traffic to get from point A to point B, so you can do a lot more in a day, okay? As well as the cost of this quality of life being relatively accessible. All right, so I think that is the first aspect and the first pillar. I think the second one is the quality of resource. We have some very high quality technical people people who are able to understand very complex logic, people who are not afraid to try things. And I think that does influence as well our ability to perform within this space. Just to give you a bit of a background of Malta, particularly within the education space, Malta has its education is for free, so university, you do not pay for the university in Malta. Moreover, actually, students get paid to go to university, so the government actually pays people to actually pursue a degree, which obviously means that the amount of resource that does come out of the university is pretty substantial, but more importantly, the quality of that resource is very high. Okay, so that obviously does help fuel our ability to actually develop tech-based products. Okay. The third one being I would say the geographic the location of Malta. So Malta does connect north and south. Okay, it sits squarely in the Mediterranean, right in the middle. It has always been a stepping stone into Africa, as well as Africa being a stepping stone into Europe. So we do get a lot of attention from North Africa, Egypt, Libya, etc., and there is an up-and-coming startup scene over there. What are seen as a stable location for them to actually create a vehicle within Malta, as well as further south. I mean, at the moment, particularly in the past couple of months, we're seeing a lot of attention from South Africa, for example, with a lot of businesses looking at Malta because it does have a very stable. It is a very stable location, politically, financially, etc., which is also, in relative terms, pretty low cost. Okay, so the burn rate of someone coming to Malta, setting up a startup, and in the very delicate early months or early couple of years, when you're always worried about cash flow, you're always worried about your burn rate. Essentially, when you're going to run out of cash, Malta there is an interesting opportunity that Malta can take you a lot further than being in a capital within Europe, within Central Europe. I think people are starting to realize this, and that is obviously having quite an interesting effect on what is happening in Malta. I think Malta needs to be seen not as Maltese getting involved in a startup scene, but Malta as a jurisdiction for startups. There isn't enough population in Malta for us to be able to create a huge startup scene, a huge thriving startup scene, but we're seeing these startups being almost imported, these ideas being imported, and that obviously fuels ambition and fuels, this I want to take over the world kind of approach, to the space.
So yeah, that's great. It seems like you're very open to the outside world, which is something I value in a startup scene. Is like when they are looking outside, seeing what they can incorporate, what they can contribute. So, what is your vision looking at Europe, startup Europe? That's the theme of what we do here. So, what is your vision when you look at Europe and startups?
I mean, yes, I think Europe. You hit it on the head in the beginning when you said that what we're doing within the startup space is highly segmented. A lot of people are trying to achieve very similar things. We do have cultural differences in a very small space. So Europe is not big. Okay, I mean, if you had to compare Europe to the States or to other jurisdictions, geographically it is not large. However, there are huge cultural differences between one jurisdiction and another. Okay. And I think that the bringing together of ideas, the work, the spreading of your line of sight. Okay, so looking at if you are a VC or a product accelerator, trying to tap into foreign jurisdictions and working with Europe as a whole rather than with your country of origin, or your main market. I always say that, if you, for example, if you have a startup and you need to go for a VC round, most startups tend to go for the venture capital, which is most accessible, and I think this is a challenge. It is going for, the venture capitalist that can add most value over and above its cash that it provides, trying to find entities that are, wherever they are located within Europe or even beyond, that can add the most value, or whether it's product acceleration. And everyone has their niche, but treating Europe as one collective market rather than as many dispersed entities trying to achieve similar things, and I think that would be Europe's vision rather than mine, or what should be Europe's vision, and bringing everything together and removing barriers, whether they are cultural, language, etc., and working more collectively.